Hello and welcome to Immigration with Andrew. I'm Andrew, and in this video, we will be discussing the American Dream and Promise Act of 2021, H.R. 6. Okay, let's have some fun. Last week, the House introduced H.R. 6 of 2021. H.R. 6 is the same number bill that the House introduced and passed in the last session in 2019. This is H.R. 6 of this session, 2021. So that's what we're going to be focusing on today. This was introduced on Wednesday last week. This is the DREAM Act. They're calling it the American Dream and Promise Act. So in this video I will discuss primarily the DREAM Act requirements, but also the Promise Act requirements too. Similar to the DREAM Act, but it's for a different set of people. And then I do at the end want to spend a little bit of time on the differences and similarities, primarily the differences between this bill, H.R. 6, and the U.S. Citizenship Act that was introduced in both chambers, but in the House as well a couple weeks ago. That is the bigger bill. We'll get to that at the end. First, I want to go through the requirements for the DREAM Act in this bill, H.R. 6. So, like the other DREAM Acts, like DACA, there are a few different aspects to this program. The first one is entry as a child, right? The DREAM Act is supposed to be for people who came to the United States as children. For DACA, that means under the age of 16. For this DREAM Act, the other DREAM Acts, I believe, the requirement is that the person come to the United States before they turn 18 years old. And importantly here, there's no upper age limit on that. It's not like the person has to be under a particular age today to be able to qualify. Anybody who's under the age of 18 when they initially entered the United States and who was present in the United States on January 1st of 2021 would meet the physical presence requirement and the initial entry requirement. The second component is the education requirement. So for this bill, H.R. 6, the person has to either be in school or have a high school diploma or a GED or a high school equivalency. That's fairly similar to the other DREAM Act requirements and DACA as well. The next one is the criminal bars. So this bill, just like DACA, just like the other DREAM Acts too, no felonies. If somebody has a felony, then they're not going to be eligible. If somebody has 3 or more misdemeanors, they're not going to be eligible. And if somebody has a crime of domestic violence, then they're not going to be eligible. So what that means is, so felony here means crime with a maximum term of imprisonment of over 1 year, and misdemeanor means a maximum term of imprisonment of between 5 days and 1 year. So if the crime has exactly a 1 year maximum penalty imprisonment, then that's a misdemeanor. It's only if it's over 1 year that it's a felony. And domestic violence here means the use, attempted use, or threatened use of physical force against a spouse, basically somebody who you've been in an intimate relationship with. So in Colorado, we have what's called obscene gestures and other types of harassment. Telephone harassment is a common one, but without an element of the use, attempted use, threatened use of physical force, then that crime would not be it would not be a crime of domestic violence for the DREAM Act purposes. So, and there are waivers for this. Then there are other grounds of inadmissibility too that I don't think are worth getting into here, at least now that the bill is only introduced. Maybe as the bill goes through committee, and definitely after the bill gets passed, we'll go through those in detail. But for now, I don't think it's worth it. So the criminal bars, no felonies, 3 or more misdemeanors, that'll disqualify the person, or any crime of domestic violence. So to be clear, if the person only has 1 crime on the record, it's a misdemeanor. but it's a crime of domestic violence that fits that definition of domestic violence, then that person is ineligible. And there are waivers available here. So the person can waive the consideration of one misdemeanor if the person has not had any criminal history in the past 5 years, and the person can waive consideration of two misdemeanors if the person has had a clean criminal record for the past 10 years. So what I believe that means is if the person, let's say the person has 3 misdemeanor convictions from 2013, 2014, and 2015. Well, that person has the 3 misdemeanors, but now in 2021, the person has had a clean record for 5 years, excuse me. So that person could apply for a waiver. To get the waiver, the person would have to show that the waiver would be for humanitarian purposes or to ensure family unity or is otherwise in the public interest. So no hardship requirement there for the waiver. So the waiver is going to be fairly generous. And so if the person meets these requirements, they're going to get what they're calling lawful permanent residence on a conditional basis. And that's a mouthful, but that's what the last bill used too from 2019, the last HR 6 from 2019. So it's permanent residence on a conditional basis. This status would be valid for 10 years, and the person could remove those conditions based on the same 3 tracks. So there's the education track, which means the person has basically a college diploma or has completed 2 years of college or other types of post-secondary learning. There is the military track, where the person has completed 2 years of military service. If the person has been discharged, then it's an honorable discharge. And then there is the work track, the employment track. So the person has worked for 3 years, and 75% of the time they had the employment authorization. And there are different exceptions or different ways around that too, if the person was in school for some of that time. So the person could still meet the requirement, for example. But that's essentially the DREAM Act. So once the person meets either the education track, the military track, or the work track, the person removes the conditional basis. I like this bill because I don't think the last bill was super clear. This bill makes it clear if the person meets the requirements to remove the conditional basis, then the person goes straight to lawful permanent residence, goes straight to the full-blown green card. That's really clear on this. This bill too provides, they're calling it a streamlined procedure for DACA recipients. So DACA recipients can apply for free for the permanent residence on a conditional basis. It's not so clear that the person would apply for the green card for free. But streamlined, we'll have to see what streamlined means. Maybe it's a separate form. Maybe it's a shorter form. So we'll just have to see. The last couple points I want to make on the DREAM Act, though, just because it's not like DACA. There'll be a medical exam here. This isn't super clear in the text of the bill. Like always, I'll post the link to the bill's text in the description below. The bill's text doesn't specifically mention the requirement for a medical exam, but when discussing the inadmissibility grounds, it mentions the health ground, and so generally that ground is satisfied by medical exam. There's also the English and civics exam, the same civics test that they apply to people seeking U.S. citizenship naturalization. So that should hopefully be fairly straightforward if by definition the person has been here since before they were 18 and graduated high school or has a GED. So those are the main points I wanted to bring out on this bill. Briefly now, I think it's worth comparing this to the U.S. Citizenship Act of 2021. Again, I'll post the link to that text too. I'll probably post a link to the video I did on that bill as well. But so, like that bill, it's the entry before 18, it's the continuous presence since January of 2021. Both, I didn't mention this, both have a little exception there. If the person came before they were 18, been here since 2021, there's an exception to that if the person was removed or departed after January 20th of 2017 when the previous president was inaugurated, and had been here for a period of time before they left. So the idea is similar. It's entry before 18, be here for a particular period of time. That exact period of time could change as the bill goes through committee, especially as it goes to the Senate, and then conference, and so we'll have to see what happens there. But that's the idea. Entry before 18, continuous residence for a particular time, certain education requirements, special procedure for DACA, and the certain criminal bars and the certain waivers for those criminal bars. So the difference that I've seen here is that this bill makes it clear to me that for somebody already in school, that person would be able to apply for the conditional residence on the conditional basis, whereas I don't think it was very clear, at least to me, in the U.S. Citizenship Act, that a person who is currently in school and who could get DACA would be eligible for the permanent residence, or the lawful prospective immigrant status, they called it in that bill. So that's a difference. This bill, H.R. 6, for the criminal grounds, has that specific, I mean, it's a special ground for crimes of domestic violence that's not included in the other bill. The English and civics test and the medical exam, excuse me, not required by the U.S. Citizenship Act, those are required here. So again, I think broadly speaking, the bills are very similar. I mean, when somebody says DREAM Act, they're thinking of people who come to the United States as children, people who are in school, people who don't have serious criminal records. And so at that higher level, the bills are very, very similar. It's only when we get into that more granular detail that the differences come through. So those are the main ones. The last one too, well, and again, we'll just have to see as the bill goes through committee. But the U.S. Citizenship Act makes it clear that spouses and children of applicants would be eligible. That's not the case here, at least as the bill as it is currently written. So as I always say, we'll just have to see as the bill goes through committee how the bill changes. I believe that this bill, or a version of this bill, will pass the House. What happens in the Senate is a different question, obviously, but this, you know, the House passed the DREAM Act in 2019, so I have every reason to believe that the House will pass a version of the DREAM Act, whether it's this H.R. 6 or whether it's the U.S. Citizenship Act or whether it's something else. That's remains to be seen. So that's all I have to say on the DREAM Act part of it. The American Promise Act part of the bill is for people who either had TPS or were nationals or citizens of a country designated for TPS and who have been here for 3 years. And so that's really all I think I want to say on that right at the end of the video. We'll just have to see. Again, we'll just have to see how the bill's text changes as it goes through committee and then goes on to the Senate. As always, please shoot me a text or leave a comment below. Really have been enjoying the interaction on these videos. And if there's news, I'll get a video up right away. Thanks for watching.